Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today I want to talk about the idea of physical media because I have done a lot of physical media videos. I've done a lot very negative videos. I've done a lot of very positive videos. But I want to talk about the idea of physical media. What is physical media about? What does it stand for? What does it represent? Because while new collectors come to physical media now in droves, we've seen this big trend in recent months of people coming to DVD, people coming to Blu-ray, maybe some to 4K. I don't think many people are gravitating there straight away. I think people are getting back into collecting first before they go to the 4K option. But you see this trend of people coming back to physical music, physical gaming, physical DVDs, movies, And I want to talk about the idea of physical media because the idea of physical media is that you own it. And I know people will debate the copyright issues and you don't actually own the content on that disc. You don't own anything. You should just go and buy it digitally. Well, we've seen recently there has been a new announcement from Activision that they have remastered Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. Now, given these games' age and all the complicated rights, we've got Bam Margera's not going to be in number 3, who was a big part of number 3. Number 4, they're not going to put free roam in for the remaster. The best part about physical media is that you can go back and experience those games as they were intended to be seen, as they were intended to be released. No complicated remasters, no, we can't put free roam in there. That game exists right there on a disc. No matter who owns it right now, that is a testament to that time and is a product of that time. So you can play it as it was intended. So that's one little benefit of physical media. You can have the game as it existed when it was released. It's not going to be patched or anything. Now, given modern games aren't as safe as older games because you have these day one patches, some games shipped damaged or broken or whatever it is, they need a patch to work. So when I look at the gaming industry in terms of physical media, older games definitely have their appeal. And there are a lot of games out there that you just cannot get. Now, given you can obviously get this one on digital, but this is a game here, the Super Mario 3D All-Stars. This is a game that was only released for a limited period of time. They only shipped a few, however many copies of this. And this has become a very collectible title to have in someone's collection. But I have this because I believe in having the game on physical media, so that if Switch ever decide to pull it off the shelves, I still have it. Nintendo cannot physically come and take this off my shelf. And you might say, but they can lock your console if you play it or whatever, blah, 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 I don't see that happening because I can always keep my Switch offline, There's always that possibility. Or likewise, we have older wrestling games like 2006 SmackDown vs. Raw. Now, this one had the legendary General Manager mode. This is where General Manager mode debuted. Now, we have seen new adaptations of General Manager mode, but a lot of people point at 2006, 2007, and 2008, the original iterations of General Manager mode in SmackDown vs. Raw, as the thing to go to. They are the way you were meant to play it, the way you were meant to experience that mode. So people gravitate and want that experience and prefer that experience. So you know what I'm saying? In terms of preservation, gaming in particular needs physical media because you don't know what a gaming company is going to do tomorrow. You don't know if they're going to say, oh, The Last of Us Part 3, we're probably not going to make that. But what happens if they go back and alter Part 1 to make it all their modern stuff in there and say, you know what, we weren't happy with that. We're going to put a rock in front of Ellie in that scene. Star Wars? I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in there because everyone knows the infamous restorations of Star Wars where Lucas went back and changed little key details like putting a rock in front of R2-D2 because he couldn't have done that in the original production. But that's what I'm talking about. You don't know what a company's going to do. You don't know what a company's going to do to your movies. And if you're solely relying on physical media, on the streaming component of that, you're kind of limiting yourself to being at their mercy. What are they going to give you? Now, some people have said, oh, I like True Lies on 4K. I very much like True Lies on 4K. There are people who don't. And that's why the DVD component of that still exists. People still prefer the DVD. People still prefer the Laserdisc. There are people who prefer the Laserdisc for Jurassic Park because it has the DTS, the original sound that would have been heard in the cinemas. It has changed over time. So there are a lot of benefits to physical media. Likewise, if a company has to change their whole corporate identity due to a lawsuit, like the WWF now being called the WWE, I can still watch WrestleMania 17 in its original form. Now people might say, but that's available on the WWE deal on Netflix or whatever. Not exactly, because there were a lot of music in that release here that it's just not on streaming, you know. Tutti Frutti, for example, for Mean Gene Okerlund, you know, that has been changed. There is a lot of components in here that you just can't use. I think even Disturbed for Stone Cold Steve Austin, to an extent, has some legal rights issues that they can't get past. There is just a lot there that you cannot... In fact, I think Steve Austin might have been Drowning Pool, maybe Disturbed. I have to fact check that, but you know what I'm saying? That's something of a product of its time. I could watch it on streaming now, don't get me wrong. You can get all this on streaming. I get it. You can download it from the Bay. No one's saying you can't. We all know you know how to use a VPN. We all know that. But, you know, what I'm saying is the idea of physical media is that you can operate outside of the system. You don't have to have an internet connection. You can have WrestleMania 17 right here and watch it at your leisure, assuming the disc isn't scratched or rotted or something. Now that's something people use to discredit physical media. Oh, they can rot, they just rot and nothing, we don't need those silly things. I believe, yeah, if anything has a shelf life. People talk about the Warner Brothers releases on HD DVD. Those are rotting, I understand that. But when you buy physical media, you kind of understand that it's there, and to an extent, as long as you look after it and they were manufactured correctly, so it's all down to manufacturing as well, then you're going to have these for quite a while. I mean, there are discs from the 80s that still play. There are laser discs from the 70s that, when there was called Disco Vision, that still play. So to say, oh, they're all just going to rot, is a mistake, and people pushing that narrative probably don't have a clue what they're talking about. So when I'm talking about physical media, I'm telling you that the idea is that you can have a representation of movies you love for a day where a cyclone might hit. Now, we are definitely aware that Cyclone Alfred hit Brisbane and Queensland recently. So my thoughts are with them, but also we need to talk about what happens when a cyclone hits. What happens when the power grid goes out? What happens when the internet connection is down? Physical media comes into its form right there and then, because obviously if power's out, people would still have a disk drive. If you're collecting physical media, I'm assuming you'll probably have a disk drive. And you can play that on your MacBook or your PC, or, you know, as long as it's not a desktop, you can play it on your PC, your laptop. But this is what I'm talking about. There are ways to watch that. If you wanted to watch movies, you can. And the first thing that always comes back is the power grid. They always try to push the power grid, because without the power grid, you don't have essential services like sewerage and, you know, even like tap and goes, you know, stuff like that. You know, people rely on tap and go now to pay for like gas and stuff, or petrol we call it in Australia, but a lot of my videos are for Americans, so that's what it's for. So a lot of people do rely on that systems, and so they're usually the first thing to come back. But a lot of things like tap and go require you to have an internet connection. The internet is not a priority. Now, I get people say, but the internet is a priority. We need the internet for everything. Not exactly. I think people are more... When a cyclone hits, or a hurricane in America, a lot of people think, okay, safety first, also the power grid, also essential services. The internet's like a weeks-long problem. That's not a essential day one fix, because people can go a couple of days without the internet. But what I'm saying is the physical media component means that you can still access this. Now, one thing you see behind me is I collected a lot of this, and I don't believe this is necessarily what everyone needs to do as well. Like, I consider myself a librarian for this stuff, so I consider this to be a physical media library. You know, I like it to have it, and I like to have access to this. I don't stream as much as people would think. I watch a lot of YouTube, but I don't stream through services like Netflix quite often. So I will come in here and just be like, okay, I want to have a look and browse, and it reminds me of the video shop days. But here's the thing. If you didn't want to collect all of this, if you didn't want to get into the multiple shelves of this, you could just collect your favorite 100 movies, and you don't have to collect them on 4K. Here's the thing, and this is where I get very annoyed with collectors on YouTube, where they keep constantly pushing this narrative that if you're not buying 4K, your collection is worthless, because that is wrong. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. because I'm just going to pull any random one off my shelf here. This is the Ocean dub of Dragon Ball Z. This one is very hard to get on any format. Now, I know they probably did Rock the Dragon, I know that was a box set, but I had all the Ocean dubs from the original releases here. So you kind of understand, from my standpoint, I look at that as being a part of history. And I also believe DVD has as much value as a 4K, depending which version of it you're buying. I've showed it in the past that I have Star Wars, the 2006 limited editions that contain the original theatrical unaltered cut. Now, obviously, there were alterations in there, but it wasn't as evident as the 1997 remasters, the special editions that have become synonymous with Star Wars now. It is the official version. It's replaced all the versions prior. But this is what I'm talking about. We need to start looking at it as preservation, but also what happens if you just want a copy of your movie like Terminator 2 and you don't like what they've done on 4K, where they've changed color grades and changed sounds and made it look more blue and put Arnie's face on the stunt double. Well, I have the Blu-ray down here that I watch quite often. I like the Blu-ray because I don't necessarily agree with the 4K. Now, I do have the 4K for reference, and I do like to have it because, as I said, I consider my collection a library of movies, but it's something of, I believe everyone can collect however they want. If you want to go out and buy every movie known to man, then you can do it like I did it, and I don't have everything, but I'm also very aware that what I do and don't have, and I am also quite happy with my collection. I'm quite happy with what I have. I'm quite happy with what I don't have. I'm quite happy to live like this and be also aware of collecting and understanding what price I'm putting in and keeping detailed records to hold myself accountable when I spend a big sum of money on certain releases, like Columbia Classics. So when I'm looking at stuff like this, I do it very responsibly. When I started doing it, I even kept records, even though I was collecting just about everything. I did keep very detailed records. And this is the thing. The idea of physical media is meant to be simplicity. It's meant to be, okay, if you don't need to have an internet connection. You don't need to watch an ad or two. It's not going to autoplay a trailer that tells you half the movie before you try to jump into it. It's not going to put a rock in front of R2-D2, assuming you get the right version of Star Wars. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can pick and choose and cater the experience to however you want. Now, on that note, physical media is not piracy. And I understand people say, oh, I can just get everything on the bay and put it all on hard drives and put it into a Plex server. Rip all those silly discs and throw them all out because you can just put it all on a Plex server. I don't like that either, because the idea of physical media is you can pull something off the shelf and be like, yeah, Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro. And, you can look at the cover, you can interact with the actual experience of the cover itself, the actual experience of physical media. You can open up the case and see the disc in there and be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Like, I mean, it's not the greatest art on the disc, don't get me wrong, but you understand what I'm saying? You can interact with the product itself. It's something physical. You can hold it in your hands. It is something that is real. It's a real thing. It's not something on a remote that you're just clicking through a database trying to watch. It's a real product. It's something you can hold in your hand and say, this is what I spent my money on. And I'm happy to say I spent my money on that. Haven't bought part 2 though. I haven't even seen part 2. But there is a big part of physical media here that gets ignored. You don't have to collect the 4K. You can collect Blu-ray, you can collect DVD. And the idea of physical media is that nobody is correct in this standpoint. Everyone on YouTube says the same thing. If you're not collecting 4K, then you're collecting the wrong way. Well, no. There is no way. It's subjective. You can choose which way you want to collect. You can say, no, I don't want to collect 4K. I think 4K is overpriced, and I don't think they get the restorations right. I'm going to go Blu-ray. Or, I don't think Blu-ray is worth it. I think I can get all my favorite DVDs for $1 a piece and be happy. Then that's fine. Like, there is no right or wrong way to collect. And the idea of physical media tells you that you don't have to collect like other people. I've seen, guys like Films at Home. He does a very good channel, or Jeff, he does a very good stuff. I still call him Films at Home. I know it's Jeff Ruzio, or I don't know how I'm pronouncing it correctly. I know it's not Russo, it's Ruzio or something. But I do watch his videos. He does very good takes on physical media, and he tells you the same thing. Don't collect to be like other collectors. Make your own pathway. That's the best part about physical media. There's no one size fits all. It's not, oh, Jamie bought the 4K of Shazam, so therefore I've got to go out and buy the 4K of Shazam. Likewise, you can go out and buy the Blu-ray of Shazam if you want it. You can go out and buy the DVD. They're still releasing DVDs. That's what I think. And also, when they change things like music, like one of the most famous albums, Ready to Die from Notorious B.I.G., all the samples had to get changed at a certain point because Bad Boy Records got sued. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Bad Boy because of all the Diddy stuff, but, you know, there is a lot there. And what happens if Ready to Die gets buried due to the lawsuits going against Puff Daddy at the moment? There's a lot to analyze there. So I keep a physical copy of the original pressing of Ready to Die. Now, that's in a different room, but I do have that. And that's what I mean. Like, if you like something, having it as a physical representation gives you safety and gives you something to say, I like that and I wanted to spend my money on that and I have it now and nobody can take it away from me. They're going to remaster Tony Hawk 3 and 4. I still have the PS1 version there. I have a GameCube version over there. I'm going to try to get the PS3, PS2 versions. There are multiple different ways to collect these stuff. There's been multiple remasters of GTAs over the years. Some bad, some good. But there are so many different ways to collect stuff. But if you have the version you like, there's no right or wrong way to have it. As long as you're happy with what you pay your hard-earned money for, that's the idea of physical media. To be satisfied, to have it as a physical representation of something you love. And as long as you're happy, don't worry about what YouTube tells you. Don't worry about what other collectors are telling you. As I've said, as Jeff said, as Angry Video Game Nerd says, as so many other people, Metal Jesus says, as we all say on YouTube, it's all subjective. Have fun with it. Don't go out to follow up and say, oh, I need to have a collection as big as Jamie's. I need to go out and buy every movie known to man. If you're happy just having your favorite 10 movies and having access to those and having the covers and having the experience, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think we get a bit caught up in the whole idea that we've all got to compete and we've all got to be one above each other and we've got to go around and buy the newest releases, otherwise they're not going to continue 4K. They're going to continue 4K. I'm sorry to tell you guys, I'm sorry to tell the YouTubers who watch these videos and say, oh, but Jamie's just spreading misinformation. No, they're going to keep printing 4K Blu-rays because that's where the money is at the moment. They can see the returns on these things, especially when they do a nice collector's edition. They can see the returns on those and say, you know what, we need to do that because they are spending 3 times as much as the Blu-ray to get that collector's edition. They're not going to leave money on the table. Now the other argument is that, oh, what are you going to do when they don't make players anymore? I'm going to go out and buy one of the X-Dock players. To tell you the truth, I can still get Laserdisc players. I can still get VHS players. I can still get vinyl players, even though not the newer ones that they manufacture these days. I can still get some from the 70s and 60s. These things are built to repair. And there are people who will, even though they're not manufacturing parts anymore, it's like a car. Cars go back to, you know, the early 1900s or late 1800s, you know. Cars in that form. Jay Leno has a garage, you know. He has cars from 1906 in there. Players can do the same thing. All you got to do is replace the lens, make sure everything's working in order. People can repair these things. And yes, it becomes harder as time goes on. Everything has a shelf life. But then I would believe that you can also get a new old stock. You can buy that. So don't trust what anyone tells you. If players go extinct tomorrow and they say, we're not manufacturing any more 4K players, or any more Blu-ray players, or any more DVD players, there's already millions out there on the market. There's already millions that are in people's houses, in the PlayStation, in the Xbox, in whatever. I think you're still going to be able to access all that. And I think people pushing the misinformation that, oh, you're not going to be able to access it because Sony is going to get out, or LG. No. I think that's a misconception, and I think they're lying to you. But anyways, that's the idea of physical media. It's to be happy with a representation of something you love. It's not to compete. It's not to have the biggest collection. It's to have a representation of something you love. And I'm making an emphasis on that. Something you love. I love Titanic. I've got Titanic off to the side there. In fact, I'm going to show this movie because I saw him last night. He was in Sydney on the 7th of March, and I saw him last night. Great performance. He performed all the West Coast, but, you know, straight out of Compton. Ice Cube, you know. Obviously, Ice Cube's son in here, but, you know, that's a movie that is in my collection. I loved the NWA story. I loved NWA's music. I saw Ice Cube last night. And I think it's a great representation of a movie, and I wanted it in my collection. Likewise, there are movies that I look in my collection here, and I'm like, why do I have certain movies in my collection? I have Old by M. Night Shyamalan, and I'm just like, why did I buy that? That wasn't a great movie. I didn't watch it, and I bought it because I hadn't watched it, and I wanted to experience it on 4K. But now I'm also like, I probably shouldn't have bought that. It was kind of a stupid movie, and I don't know if I really wanted to watch it. But now I've got it, I'm just like, I might as well keep it. It's not hurting anyone to have it there. I could sell it, but it's also something that's just like, it's not hurting anyone to have it on my shelf. And as I said, I treat this like a library. That's my idea of physical media. It might differ from your way of collecting physical media, and some people call it a hoard. I'm sure people call it a hoard. But everything has a place here. Everything has a purpose. And that makes my collection valuable to me. Doesn't have to be valuable to you, but it's valuable to me. And that's where I want to end it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think of this video, the idea of physical media. Obviously, I also want to mention before I sign off that the autopsy results for Gene Hackman, his wife, and I don't think his dog's autopsies got released, if they're going to do one, but we definitely know the autopsy results for Gene Hackman's wife and Gene Hackman himself. Very sad stuff. One of the greatest actors of all time. Obviously, his wife had passed away a full week before he did, but people said he had an advanced stage of Alzheimer's, so he might not have even realized his wife had passed away. So it's very sad stuff at the end of that actor, one of the most legendary actors of all time, Gene Hackman. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. And also, we need to talk about as well, rest in peace to Gene Hackman, his wife and dog, but also rest in peace to Michelle, I forget her last name, but she's the actress who plays Dawn Summers in Buffy. She also passed away the same day as Gene Hackman, or the day it was announced. So, I mean, a lot of people kept it at the forefront because it was like, no, we can't let Gene Hackman overshadow this. But yeah, she also passed away the same day. And I didn't do an initial reaction to that because I don't want to do reactionary stuff, but very sad stuff coming out in the industry. And also the in memoriam segment to the Oscars was just a big, big mind job because they didn't even acknowledge Shannon Doherty or anyone. So yeah, I don't know what we're doing as an industry, but let me know what you think down there in the comments, and let me know what your idea of collecting physical media is and what the idea of physical media is to you. What do you collect? Why do you love physical media? Jump down in the comments and let me know, and check this video out because I think you might like it. Peace out. See you in the next one.